Globally, formal Islamic prayer is characterized by strict uniformity. Whether a worshiper speaks English, Swahili, or Mandarin, the ritual demands a single linguistic standard, Arabic. This global requirement is driven by fiqh, or Islamic jurisprudence. Fiqh is the complex legal framework that provides the detailed day-to-day rules for modern religious practice. This legal structure is built by combining the primary text, the Qur'an, with centuries of secondary historical texts, prophetic traditions known as hadith, and generations of scholarly consensus. This presents an immediate hermeneutical problem. We must determine how much of the strict Arabic-only rule for prayer comes directly from the primary text, and how much is a later jurisprudential layer built on top of it. To understand the actual linguistic parameters of Islamic worship, we must completely sever the primary text from centuries of historical jurisprudence and read it on its own terms. We are applying a strict literalist test. We will isolate the Quran from all secondary literature, classical exegesis, and traditions. The raw primary text is our only source of data for this investigation. The parameter for this test is highly specific. We are searching the text for an explicit command that restricts worship or prayer exclusively to the Arabic language. A strict literal reading of the Quran yields 0 explicit mandates for Arabic-only prayer. The text never states that a prayer is invalid if performed in another language. Instead, it builds a logical framework that prioritizes universal comprehension over phonetic repetition. The Arabic requirement is an assumption read backward into the primary scripture by later legal traditions. The text itself points in the opposite direction. The immediate counterargument usually centers on the text's own self-identification. The Quran repeatedly states that its revelation is in Arabic. This diagram visualizes verses 12:2 and 43:3. The text states, "Indeed, we have sent it down as an Arabic Quran that you might understand." It isolates explicit causality here. Arabic is the chosen vehicle, so the primary audience could comprehend the message. In the context of 7th century Arabia, delivering an Arabic message was the only logical way to communicate effectively with the local population. This establishes a practical function for the language, which is very different from establishing a ritualistic mandate for future generations. Verse 41-44 reinforces this logic, noting that if the revelation had been sent in a foreign tongue, the Arab audience would have logically objected to an incomprehensible message. The text defines Arabic as a functional tool for comprehension, framing clarity as the primary objective of the revelation. We can expand this investigation from the historical Arabian context to the text's broader theological stance on human language as a whole. Verse 14:4 establishes a clear principle. Every messenger is sent exclusively in the language of their own people, to state the message clearly. Verse 30:22 expands on this, stating, "The creation of the heavens, the earth, and the diversity of your languages are divine signs." The Quran categorizes human linguistic diversity as a deliberate act of creation. It is not presented as a flaw to be corrected or a barrier to be overcome in worship. This theology directly conflicts with the traditional legal requirement that mandates a single language for all believers. As the religion spread globally to populations in Asia, Africa, and the West, the demographic reality shifted to non-Arabic speakers. Forcing a non-Arabic speaker to pray using incomprehensible sounds actively contradicts the Quran's stated purpose for language. The text demands deep, localized understanding. When we examine the core mechanics of worship, we have to look at the textual commands for salah, the formal, mandated daily prayer. This matrix tracks the textual commands. On the left are frequent orders to establish the prayer, such as in verses 243 and 2014. We are searching for any linguistic parameters attached to these actions. The verses detail the strict purposes of salah, active remembrance of God, and a mechanism for moral restraint. The scan returns 0 results for a linguistic mandate. Physical actions and timing are commanded, but no language is specified. Moving to the right column, we look at personal, informal supplication, or dua. We check verse 17:110. For personal requests and calls to God, the text explicitly says to call upon Him however one chooses. There are absolutely 0 linguistic barriers. The primary text stringently commands the act and purpose of prayer. while providing no instructions on which language the worshiper must use. If language isn't mandated for daily rituals, we have to ask if the text grants any exclusive salvific status to Arabs as an ethnic or linguistic group. Verse 49:13 defines the text's primary metric for human value: righteousness. That same verse explicitly states that humanity was divided into peoples and tribes, specifically to know one another. It actively strips any inherent nobility from a particular ethnicity or mother tongue. Verse 262 extends spiritual reward to believers of completely different historical communities, including Jews, Christians, and Sabians. The criteria are their belief and righteous actions, not their language. This is a universal salvific model. It leaves no room for the insular assumption of an Arabic-only heaven or an exclusively Arab covenant. God's judgment is based entirely on universal righteous action and sincere faith. Logically, a prayer's validity cannot hinge on speaking the Arab tongue. This brings us to the practical application of a literalist reading. According strictly to the primary text, can a non-Arab recite a translation during formal salah? We must acknowledge a critical distinction. A translation is an interpretation of the meaning. It is not the literal, phonetic Arabic revelation itself. While it is not the original phonetic text, a translation is the necessary mechanism to fulfill the Qur'an's highest demand. It allows the worshiper to comprehend what they are saying. There is no verse anywhere in the text that prohibits translating the message for the purpose of teaching, guidance, or worship. Within a closed, literal, Qur'an-alone framework, utilizing translated recitations for salah is entirely textually permissible. We can now re-merge the two spheres we separated, the primary text and historical jurisprudence. This visualizes exactly where the linguistic mandate belongs. The rule that formal prayer must be in Arabic is a product of preserving the original recitation and later consensus. That tradition has high utility. It successfully preserved the original Arabic text for centuries. But it is definitively a secondary historical development. The primary text requires sincerity, moral restraint, and deep cognitive comprehension. It demands this regardless of the language spoken by the individual. The requirement of Arabic prayer is a historical construct. The literal Qur'an itself offers a universally accessible, language-agnostic theology of worship.